Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of Pluribus episode 1 and 2. Before I jump into my review, I just wanted to mention I got to interview Rhea Seehorn again, this time about Pluribus. It was a really fun time, and she breaks down her character in really interesting ways. So I highly suggest you watch that after this review because we talk about the first two episodes, and it's really enticing stuff. That will be linked below. Now, I was really excited about the show. As you know, I'm a huge Vince Gilligan fan, and it was fun covering Better Call Saul for all those years and building a lot of you guys as fans. So it's cool we can connect again here with more of Vince Gilligan's work. It's cool now he's on Apple TV, and he's going more of his X-Files route in sci-fi with doing Pluribus. He has stated that he named the show Pluribus because he was thinking of the motto E Pluribus Unum, which means out of many, one. And he said it just stuck the most for him for this show. You even see that the I in Pluribus is a one, and obviously this one representing Carol. And Carol is, out of many, this one person right now who's this important figure in the story, and that theme going on too about individuality in the show so far, which we'll break down as we go through these episodes. So let's start with episode 1. We see we're starting in a countdown, which is 439 days. You see these astronomers are just thrilled because they're detecting some extraterrestrial coding coming in, a signal, and they want to know what it is. Us as the audience is excited, like, okay, here we go. We're jumping right into the sci-fi mystery of all this. But then we actually jump further and we go to 71 days, and this is where we meet our main character, played by Rhea Seehorn, Carol Sturka. She is a author of romance literature, and it's a cool point of view shot we get of her looking out as she's reading her book at this book reading / signing of her fans that are oogling over her. So it gets you in her perspective of having that kind of fame. I like when she's signing the books, one fan mentions that Robin is not on the cover. I thought that was a little foreshadowing that in this new book, Robin is not on the cover. Robin is going to actually become a physical presence in Carol's life. But after all this, we see when Carol gets into the limo with Helen, her wife, she calls her work mindless crap. So you're starting to get that Scrooge effect of Carol. Now we see these scientists working on something at this research lab. Then it goes to 29 days to really clarify what's going on. Because remember, it ended where one of the astronomers figured out that this radio signal, this coding, might actually be some sort of recipe they're sending, this extraterrestrial recipe, let's call it. So what's happening is at the Medical Research Institute of Infectious Disease, these two doctors, we get to see their perspectives. They're testing on these mice what they think might be from this recipe, a lysogenic virus. But they've had nothing of results in 8 months. But you see one of these mice is not like the others and is just dormant. One of the scientists, Jen, picks up this mouse and gets bit. It noticed its heart was beating really fast. This is the first living entity on the world we see to have this, we'll call it like a happiness virus, but will be verified later. It's really like this mind glue connecting everyone together. Jen gets bit by the mouse. She gets it. She starts shaking. This also adds a horror effect to this episode, and the rest of this episode feels like a horror movie you'd see with an apocalyptic event. There's a great shot here of the soldier trying to get his chips that are stuck in the vending machine, and there's a reflection of Jen coming down the hallway after him. And we see the move here is that this entity kisses people to spread it. Then they spread the DNA through the petri dishes. So this is how this all transpired. So now we jump to 3 hours on the countdown. Carol with Helen's coming off a plane. They're arriving home to Albuquerque, New Mexico. So of course, Vince Gilligan's filming a show in New Mexico. He loves it. She's wearing that smiley yellow jacket, like a smile face. So there's obviously that symbolism of this is going to take over her world now, this happiness bug, let's call it. And you know it's bad for Carol's drinking problem when she has a breathalyzer in her car. But there's some really good writing in the scenes of Helen with Carol in the bar, and Helen calling her out about her always saying poor her and what a terrible life she must have making all this money on a book tour with all these people praising her. Helen encourages her at one point to start really seriously working on her serious book, which we learn is titled Bitter Chrysalis. A chrysalis is the pupal state of a butterfly, so I don't think it's a coincidence that's the title of her book. That's the nonfiction one, because that really is what Carol is. And at this point, I think that's foreshadowing too that she's starting bitter. She's an angry person, but hopefully she blooms into a butterfly, a more enlightened person as the show goes on through the circumstances she's thrown into. Helen also brings up a book she's been reading herself that's just been a miserable time trying to get through, and that Carol should appreciate that what she's written is having an effect on people, and saying that just making one person happy, maybe it's not art, but it's something. And I actually really like that quote, and I think Helen's totally right there. And in anything anybody creates, that has to always be acknowledged, that maybe something's not high art or more thought-provoking, but if it affects someone and makes them happy in a way, that it is something special. I like in the background of the TV, they don't notice, though, that the headline is Airbase on lockdown, so we know stuff in the world is already starting to get crazy. But what Carol does notice is the planes in the sky are actually completely parallel with each other, so we know these are already influenced pilots of the happiness glue, that they're just content all driving in the same direction. Now there's a moment where they're looking at Helen's phone. She's looking at the social media reactions to Carol's new book. One fan asks, was there a real life inspiration for her character of Robin? Helen's like, why don't we tell her the truth? There's nothing to lose here. But Carol's like, put down George Clooney, because she says she wants to be safe. So we know later on what this really has more weight to it, that the truth of the matter is it was supposed to be a female character originally, and only her and Helen knew that, but she got cold feet on it. Now this is where everything hits the fan. A man drives into a car, Carol notices, then when she turns around, Helen is shaking and then collapses and continues to shake. Carol panics. She runs into the bar. My favorite shot of the episode is from Carol looking out at what's happening at the bar. We don't see it, but we see the shot glasses shaking, and then cutting to the waitress shaking was terrifying. It was also really terrifying having the singer's voice that is like mumbling from the shaking playing in the background during this whole scene. Great acting by Rhea Seehorn in this as well. You really felt the intensity and fear. And I love in this moment of her trying to get her and Helen out of there. She can't drive her own car because of the breathalyzer. And you see the car she does grab, the design on it is a unicorn in a storm. So I don't think that's a coincidence either. She in the story is in a storm, but she's that unicorn, that one singular person right now in Albuquerque who's not affected by the virus. I also like when she drives Helen to this hospital, there's a point you got to catch where Carol just quickly saves a baby, because there's a baby in its little carriage. It's about to tip over the shelf and she stops it. I thought that was great. Now Helen won't make it here, and this is soul crushing for Carol. I love the shot here of Carol's eyes when we know what she's probably seeing is the hospital people getting up and snapping out of it, and they're all in unison like, we just want to help Carol. So it really feels now like an episode of the Twilight Zone. And it's funny because Rhea Seehorn was in an episode of the newer Twilight Zone. What's also funny to me too is in this apocalyptic type event, it's different because in the background you see all these fires and people dying, but it's the culprits of it all are actually trying to put the fires out and trying to take care of the dead bodies and displace them. I thought that was pretty funny. It's not something you're used to seeing in something like this, where you usually see zombies just walking by, causing absolute destruction. Now she's locked out of her place, but these two children remind her of where her spare key is. So you're getting the effect now in learning that this is an entity, this is a glue keeping these people together, it's an all, it's an us. And they all come out of the neighborhood and say, we're all sorry for your loss, Carol. So Carol gets C-SPAN on, the only channel that's working. And it gets creepy already for her because she sees on the headline, Carol, call this number when you're ready, no pressure. She starts pounding on the liquor to the point she even throws away the cap of the bottle. We see this politician, Davis Tefler. That is who is speaking the us through him to Carol through the TV. He explains what I was talking about, what this was a recipe that was sent through the signal, kind of psychic glue binding us all together. And that she's talking to every person on Earth. They're all one. And that there's only 11 other individuals like Carol in the world who didn't get affected, which we'll learn the next episode has come up to 12. And then it gets eerie because the entity says, we'll figure out what makes you different so you can join us. And Carol says, well, what if I say no? And that's where the entity's like, well, once you see how wonderful this is, and it cuts him off. So this is going to be the big conflict of the show too. And that scary possibility of that happening and that her being confined to the entity. So now the countdown's not a countdown anymore. It's a timer going up. And now we're up to 1 hour since the world getting taken over now. So for a premiere in this episode, I'm going to give this one an 8.1. I thought it was good. I wasn't totally sold on the concept once it was revealed yet. I want to see how it plays out, so it's kind of hard to judge right now, but I'm intrigued. Did I love it? No, but I thought it was still very good in setting some interesting stuff up. So let's go now to episode 2. We open with this new character, Zosha. She's on the other side of the world. She's packing in these dead bodies into a truck. Then we see she flies this plane to Albuquerque. Now, in Vince Gilligan true fashion, he loves these long sequences of just things happening, some kind of task being done. I do think this one ran a little long. I think it's about 7 minutes to start the episode, where I think we could have got a little quicker of her putting these bodies in the truck and flying this plane out. But we'll see that actually at the airport she lands at, someone's straightening a wig for her. If you caught that, she actually has short hair, so she was putting the wig on to become this appearance of Roban. Now we go to 11 hours on the timer. Carol's waking up hungover and is realizing this is really reality, waking up to her wife dead on the floor. And Zosha arrives to Carol as she's digging her wife's grave. Zosha, to me already, from the first moment we saw her, feels like a Jesus-like figure, is this guide, but can't interfere in many things. And you see that Carol gets frustrated with that, but is offering peace and a way to be. You see she offers her water. They don't want her to pass out, but Carol's on defense completely right now. She's scared she might do something to the water. And she's like, is that going to make me one of you? And she's like, oh, well, no, we're months away from that. So that's still a looming thing. Now, Zosha is someone they think that Carol would like the most. That's why she is an image of Roban. This is the Roban, the female version she originally wanted to put in the book. They knew this, the us, because Helen was one of them before she passed for a short time. They're able to get her memories, which is going to be important, I think, through the show a lot. That's how they're going to really know Carol, through Helen. Now, Carol rejects Zosha, the us entity. She's like, you're the reason that she is dead, talking about Helen. F you, F all of you. But this is where Zosha collapses and she's shaking. So Carol has this effect, and that this entity is very sensitive. And it's ironic because Carol, in doing this, is killing, well, we'll learn later, 1 million people doing this. But I think thematically what Vince Gilligan's doing here is really talking a lot about that cult-like thinking, that hive mind thinking. You can go into religion too, but also in society, of a way you have to be, uniformity, and in those type of groups, the sensitivity that comes with it. So anytime you reject something, there's this reaction of like fainting, and that kind of in an extreme way is shown in this show. And I think society as a whole isn't like that, where everyone's kind of walking on eggshells because of this, and maybe is afraid to be their true selves. Now, Carol will eventually invite what she calls the pirate lady back, and Zosha offers a quicker way to bury the hole. So a helicopter brings in a backhoe, and it was just funny seeing Zosha jump on the backhoe. It was really, really funny. Now, Carol's informed that there's actually 12 like her now who weren't infected by the glue. One did get minor injury from her tantrum, which we'll see explained later in the episode. Now, she only wants to meet the 5 who speak English. The reason Carol only wants to meet the 5 who speak English is clearly because if they have to use a translator like Zosha's offering, that involves the us. She doesn't want anyone else involved when she's talking to them. So now we have 2 days on the timer when she's traveling to see these 5 people. I like the humor here too, that a girl from TGI Fridays is the one flying the plane. Zosha also establishes that the us cannot protect the people who weren't affected from one another. This is going to be also important, setting up what can happen, the possibilities in this season, and that I'm sure Carol's antagonists really are going to be some of these other people. So we meet 4 others when Carol lands, and some of them have brought their families who are affected by the glue. And the 5th member arrives late because they wanted to ride in style. This is Kumba, who's coming in Air Force One. He invites them on it. Right away, we see he's a womanizer. He has models with him. This guy is taking full advantage of this new world, and he's immediately entranced by Zosha. It's also nuts he has a nuclear football, he says, but it's not working, hopefully, but it could blow up the whole world. Like, this is just a guy whose symbolism is of somebody you don't want, with the power to push buttons that could cause a war like that. So when they go into the meeting room to talk about all this, Carol wants any version of the us out of there, so they leave. But it's funny that some of them are in such denial about their family members being affected by the glue that they want them to stay. Now, Carol gets right to it. She wants to know if anyone's a doctor, if anyone is a scientist, how can we save the world? And this is where Kumba's like, why does the world need saving? So this is also a theme of this show. Just in a crazy world we're in right now, it really speaks to what everyone feels like they're going through, where like you feel like a Carol, you're screaming into this void where you're getting nothing back and people acting like everything's okay when it's really not. Now we also get the information I was talking about about the person she injured, and she killed that person's grandpa. He was driving the car. This was all caused by her tantrum. But Carol makes the point that their families, the ones that are outside, they already lost them too. Because this woman still believes her child is her child, and that will go through the whole episode. It doesn't change. Carol says, what is going to happen when they turn us into them? That's the biggest threat of the show so far. And one of them wants that. She wants to be with her family, she says. So really shows you two mindsets of why people dip into cult-like thinking. The allure of it, that escapism. Carol tells her, though, you'll lose everything that makes you special, unique. Again, talking about the theme we're already seeing in this show about keeping your uniqueness and how important oneself is. They call Carol out as the only one who didn't ask us what it's like. She says, you don't ask a drug dealer to describe their heroin. So this is a really good point by Carol to that. But Kumba changes the subject and is like, who's hungry? So they have this lunch scene. We learn the us won't kill not even a bug. And Carol's like, well, they won't kill a bug, but they'll enslave an entire planet. But Zosha gives it a different world. She calls it joining. So it's also showing you how you can spin things too. Zosha says the us didn't intend for anyone to die, but because the military was catching on to them, they had to accelerate the process of what they were doing, which would cause casualties. 866 million died. This is what Carol's like, see that? Look what they've done. But then we learn Carol's killed 11 million already through her outburst. Now, Carol will have another mini outburst. Then when she's drunk, she falls down. The us go to help her, and this is where she really snaps at them and causes them to shake. And it's crazy because it's causing the family members to shake. There goes probably another 11 million. So that's going to just lose trust with those four. But Kumba stays behind, but we know why he is, because he only wants Zosha and needs Carol's blessing. But Zosha makes clear that she can't choose between staying with Carol or going with Kumba. She says if we were to choose, it would hurt one of you. We can't do that. So it's also, I think, hitting on how our society is right now, too, about so much being concerned about hurting somebody that we don't say what we're really feeling or the truth, when at the end of the day, it sounds crazy, especially in situations like this, because no matter what you do, somebody's going to get hurt, whether you take action or not. Inaction can cause ill effects as well. And Carol knows that. See, Carol has that humanity in her. That is why she'll make the decision at the end of this episode to protect Zosha. It also is what makes her human. Choices, which we're seeing technically the us doesn't have. So it's intriguing stuff. I liked episode 1 better. I think episode 2 had too many scenes at tables and them talking and debating. And I still feel like it's not sticking out from the rest of the pack of movies and shows we've seen like this yet, but I think it will unravel into more original stuff. Right now, it just feels a little too familiar for me, but I do think it's intriguing, but I am just a little disappointed packaging these two episodes together. This episode to me was a little disappointing. I don't think I'm as interested as I was at the end of episode 1. It actually made me a little less interested and like, oh, this is what we're doing right now. So right now I'm going to give it a 7.7 episode 2, but I still have a huge high ceiling I'm putting for this show. This is Vince Gilligan. This is Rhea Seehorn. I trust them both. Sometimes Vince Gilligan takes a little bit to cook, and then once it reveals itself, you're like, oh, wow, this is incredible. And he always pays off and delivers. So I'm not worried about that. I'm just more right now in what we've gotten so far. I'm like, I'm not there yet. But I'm curious what you guys think. I want to hear your theories, everything you observed. Please check out my interview with Rhea Seehorn about this. She breaks down some stuff so well about her character in these episodes. And it's a really fun time, and she's always the best. So check that out. It's linked below. Subscribe to my channel so you don't miss one of my reviews of this show and my interviews, and also you can see my reviews of Welcome to Derry, and please follow me at Steve Ross Show on Instagram. It helps in so many ways you have no idea, and I'll see you next time.